Any of these guys that are on the beat, they know the inner workings of these organizations. They know these people personally, especially when somebody's at a place for 20 years. They develop relationships with everybody, the owner, covering Super Bowls, playoffs, Tom Brady. You can't even imagine just the amount of things that have gone through that building for 20 years with Bill Belichick. And when I brought it to you, I think it was after, and I'm trying to remember when it was, but I think it was after their loss to the Washington Commanders. And that was right before this game that went out to London. And then they lost the game to London, to the Colts in London. And that's when Curran then started, I think, started to feel the same thing within the building. I don't necessarily know that we have the same group of people we're talking to, but I do feel like he is legit, and it just confirms what I thought and many other people have thought around what's happening over the last 3 years up in New England.
Yes, and when Bill Belichick is available, and we're assuming that he's going to be after this report, there's still going to be many teams, as bad as it's been without Tom Brady, there's still going to be many teams that are going to make a run after him and pay him a ton of money. He's going to want to coach. Maybe there's a chance he takes a year off. I doubt it. He's going to want to coach somewhere. He's going to get paid. There's owners out there that are desperate, and they're going to bring him in. And there's also owners out there that have great quarterbacks that they could pair Bill Belichick with, like the LA Chargers, where it's going to seem like a perfect fit. So I know that Tom Brady left and won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know that Bill Belichick, after Tom Brady left, has watched his Patriot team crumble in front of him. But that does not mean that this guy is not going to be the biggest offseason acquisition for a particular franchise. I still think he's the greatest coach I've ever seen, and he's going to go bring another team to the playoffs somewhere and maybe even a Super Bowl.
I would just say that their defense is great. I mean, he hasn't lost his fastball when it comes to defense. They've lost their way offensively. That has been the big problem, from Cam Newton to Mac Jones to Bailey Zappi. You have to remember, these are three players that maybe Cam at one point in time was an MVP in the NFL, was a great player, was a great athlete, but his skills and his physical attributes really started to dwindle later on in his career. One of the reasons why nobody's ever asked him to come back. Everybody saw it. They saw the arm strength and everything dwindling on, and that happens to all of us. I mean, it's not exclusive for Cam Newton, but none of the three guys that they have tried to replace Tom Brady with is Tom Brady. Nobody's Tom Brady. Nobody's the uber competitive, psychotic maniac that Tom Brady is when you play quarterback, and he took it to a whole nother level. I've often told you that Peyton Manning took it to one level, and then Tom Brady took it to a completely another level. And very few players in this league have been able to ever get to that level. I think Ray Lewis is one that got to that level. Ronnie Lott was one that got to that level. Jerry Rice was one to get to that level. I mean, it's a very small group of superstar players that have applied, everything that they possibly could in their life to bring out the best of them on the field. And on top of that, they had the God-given ability to be able to do that. So the replacements have not been very good for Tom Brady up there. If you told me that now the question is it going to be a split amicably and just let Bill go on his merry way and pick whatever team he'd like to go to? Is it going to be a trade to protect the Patriots, much like when the Patriots traded Bill Parcells, I believe it was, or Curtis Martin? Mm-hmm. That whole kind of thing, all that kind of mess that went on back then. And on top of that, now if Bill Belichick is available, which we all believe he will be, if I am sitting in a head coach's chair right now, I'd be very, very worried about my long-term job security with him being available. And I could probably think on my hand maybe about 10 coaches that I think would be totally safe, that nothing would happen. I would think about 20 to 22 coaches would have to be worried about, an owner getting very impatient and going after Bill Belichick and offering him a lot of money.
Well, one thing's for sure, the way the Giants have played the last few weeks, and this Tommy DeVito revelation and Brian Daboll getting credit for an undrafted rookie free agent winning 3 games in a row, it's not going to be here. It's not going to be here. We had some callers call up and say, Bill Belichick, John Mara, if this thing falls apart like Joe Judge, do you think that he would come to the Giants? He loves the Giants. Not going to be here. Brian Daboll is going to be the head coach next year, and obviously the Jets situation, we know it's not going to be the Jets. Bill Belichick hates the Jets, and Aaron Rodgers would probably never play for Bill Belichick, so he's not coming here. Where could he go? Washington, the Chargers, the Bears. Those are the three places I think that would be at the top of the list for Bill Belichick.
I don't think it's a great situation, but I do know that there's an owner that's probably willing to spend all sorts of money on bringing somebody like Bill Belichick in, but that would be the Carolina Panthers. But I would also think that, wherever he goes, you got to think of the front office. And you got to think, is he going to just go and coach? And is he going to be able to work with somebody who's making the player, personnel decisions? Or is he going somewhere where whoever the owner is going to give him what he has up in New England?
Yeah, I think that if you're Bill Belichick and some owner is going to give you a ton of money and you've done this way your entire career, you say, you're paying me to do both. This is what I do. I do both.
Right. It would be that whole part of it would be very interesting, unless he has a relationship with somebody that we don't really know. Let's say he has a relationship with Tom Telesco out in L.A. He may be good with that. They have a good roster. They've made good picks. They just haven't lived up to expectations. And he may be say, hey, look, I don't want to have the headache of doing all of that. And I also, the other aspect of this for a lot of these coaches, it's nepotism. He has his two boys working with him.
Yep.
He wants to, continue to work with them. He wants to continue to give them a future, and he wants to continue to be able to allow them to grow as coaches and get into, the retirement, pool of money that is there for the coaches when they reach a certain amount of years in the league. So I think that that's another important part of it. I know it would be for me. If it were me and I was going through all of this stuff, I'd want to protect my family. I'd want to make sure that, whatever decision I make, I'm going to be able to make sure that I land with them wherever it is. And he probably, I don't know, maybe he's already talking to Josh McDaniel about reuniting again.
Well, they have to. And that would be, if I were an owner of a team and I were hiring Bill Belichick, I would say Josh McDaniels has to be with you. Now, I know that we look at Josh McDaniels as a total failure as a head coach, but if you look at Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels together, that's when they had the most success offensively. And think about it. Mac Jones could have been the offensive rookie of the year for the Patriots. They go to the playoffs, for crying out loud, when Josh McDaniels was the offensive coordinator. Then everything else fell apart. So that would be, you guys got to team up again. And I don't know where Bill O'Brien goes. I don't know if he stays on the staff, whatever, but those guys have to team up again. And I think immediately, if that is the Chargers, it ends up being the Chargers. You got McDaniels and Belichick and Herbert, who is now unfortunately out for the rest of the year with that finger injury. Then finally you take that team seriously.
Or you go to the Bears and you take a legacy franchise and you draft number one.
That too.
And you draft number one with Caleb Williams, or you go to Washington because of your ties to the Naval Academy and being in that area. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world of sports down in Washington right now. As I think Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Wizards and the Capitals, is going to announce a major deal with the state of Virginia to move his pro hockey team and his pro basketball team to a entertainment area over in Virginia. And they're going to be leaving Washington, D.C., which means that Washington, D.C. and the political powers that be down there are going to have to do everything they possibly can to build a new stadium where RFK sits to keep the Commanders within the city limits. And so the benefactor of maybe Leonsis leaving, which I think is going to happen, I think that ship has sailed. And I think anything that you hear out of the politicians in Washington, D.C. is all about covering their ass right now. But I would think that Josh Harris and the Washington Commanders are going to benefit from this, because all that money to revitalize Capital One Arena down there is going to be going into a new Washington Commander Stadium.
Yeah, but that doesn't seem like a situation where Bill Belichick would love to go there. The team right now needs a lot of work. They don't have a quarterback. You just mentioned all of that stuff. It doesn't seem very stable
at this
point in his life.
I know one thing. And I'm just thinking from the business side of things. I'm always thinking like, okay,
sure.
What did these owners know? I know. If you are the Bears and they're playing well right now, and Justin Fields is trying to make a name for himself and trying to hang on to that job out there, and I give him all the credit in the world for busting his ass and not giving up and playing hard and upsetting the Lions last week. Who knows? They may win 3 out of their last 4 games. But if you are the Bears and he comes available and you have the Carolina Panthers #1 pick, how you would not, from a business standpoint, go and get Bill Belichick and pair him with Caleb Williams is beyond me. Could you imagine the amount of, like, you know how all the stuff the Jets went through this offseason with Aaron Rodgers? Mm-hmm. That's exactly how it would be for the Chicago Bears, their fan base, their ownership. They're fighting for a new stadium, by the way. They want to get out of Soldier Field. They want to move up into the suburbs of northern Chicago. That's one of the reasons why they hired Kevin Warren, to see if he can get that politically done. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff going on behind the scenes that nobody sees and nobody thinks about. But at the end of the day, from a business perspective, if he goes to Chicago, he goes to Washington, or he goes to the Chargers, all three of those franchises would be electric.
Yeah, and if Bill Belichick finishes the season with the Patriots like we imagine that he would, I mean, I guess anything is possible. You would think that Robert Kraft would allow him to do that. You would think that Bill Belichick wouldn't want to leave the team. I mean, if he leaves, what the hell? So anyway, what I'm saying is, if he finishes out the season, last game of the year is against the Jets. And from both perspectives, that is just poetic justice. Either Bill Belichick beats the Jets one last time as the Patriots head coach, or the Jets finally break this losing streak to the Patriots in Bill Belichick's last game as Patriots head coach.
Well, the interesting thing is, and the Patriots have a very difficult schedule here, finishing with the Jets, but the three previous games, I forget who they're – I looked at their schedule this morning quickly. It's not easy. But when I think about – right now they're the #2 team in the 2024 NFL draft. They have the #2 pick. He goes on to win a couple games, gets them out of the Drake May, gets them out, and the Patriots are left wondering about, what's going to happen and who are they going to draft, because they're going to need a quarterback. We all know that. We all thought also there was a point in time where we're thinking, maybe Kirk Cousins to the Patriots would have made some sense. Thinking if Bill Belichick stayed and they were looking for a stopgap and they would draft a guy, maybe they would go after Kirk Cousins for a couple years up in New England, that kind of thing. But I think that ship has sailed, and I think that Tom Curran's all over it, and he's just kind of makes me feel like all of the things that I had heard around after that Washington loss are coming true.
Imagine the last game of the season, Week 18, Aaron Rodgers starting for the Jets against the Patriots, Bill Belichick's last game.
That's not happening.
Imagine. And the game means something.
Yeah, that's not happening.
The game means something. Winning, you're in for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers starting for the Jets. Bill Belichick's last game as Patriots head coach.
Winning, you're in.
It's a possibility if they run the table.
I will say 2 weeks is an eternity in the NFL. There's no question about that. And the Miami Dolphins are not the same team that the Jets saw on Black Friday.
Right.
They lost Jalen Phillips. Now they signed Melvin Ingram off the street. They've lost their two safeties. I don't know whether or not they're going to be playing against the Jets. They collapse against the Tennessee Titans. They lost their center.
For the year.
I mean,
Tyreek Hill day to day.
And what has this team done the last couple of years in December?
Well, last year in particular, they lost every single game in December. So they may have a repeat with all these injuries. But basically, if Tyreek Hill is on the field, that means that they have every ability to do anything on offense they've been doing the entire year. If he's not on the field against that Jet defense, especially the way they played against C.J. Stroud and the Texans, then watch out.
I go back and look at that tape from Monday night and yesterday. I'm like, how did Tennessee do this? And you just see how all of a sudden the Dolphins defense laying back, making mistakes, kind of like thinking that the game was over, and Tennessee scores the touchdown. Tua and his offense can't get a first down. By the way, Tennessee does go for two like they should have. They did. They made it. Then all of a sudden they come right back down the field again. They score a touchdown, kick the extra point to take the lead. And then the offense comes back out again and can't do anything in 4 downs. It's just like it happened so quick in the NFL. And those guys laid down in the final 4 minutes of that game, both defensively and offensively, like they thought the game was over and we got this thing won. And it was a really weird place that the Dolphins found themselves in. But I think they'll be better this week against the Jets. They're just not the same team because I don't think they're as good as they were when they played the Jets on Black Friday, just simply because of all the injuries on defense.
Yeah, and they came out of that Titans game just embarrassed and also hurt. And it's a short week for them because it was a Monday night game. Now, we were talking about if they had beat the Falcons and the Texans and then lost to the Dolphins, this was a couple weeks ago, then they'd be going into that Commanders game 6-8. And then they'd have Commanders, Jets, Browns to get to 9-8. And that Commanders game is what Aaron Rodgers was talking about coming back. Now,
no, you said Commanders what?
Commanders game is the one that Aaron Rodgers talked about coming back.
So, Christmas Eve, right?
Christmas Eve.
All right, but then after that, they have Cleveland.
Right, but hold on.
Then they go to the Pats.
Right, so they lost to the Falcons. They were like, okay, forget about it. Then they killed the Texans, and now they have a wounded Dolphins team. So now the same scenario applies. If the Jets can find a way to beat Miami in Miami, then you're 6-8 with 3 games to go. Commanders, Browns, Patriots. If they're still in it.
But right now,
he said he's going to play if they're still in it.
Right now, the Jets are 14th in the AFC out of 16 teams. They have to hop over like 6 other teams to even make it there. So their chances of making it to the playoffs are less than 1%.
No, it's a little bit better now, I think.
Because of the Dolphins losing, or
I think it's a little. Well, maybe it was 0.1% and went to 0.4%. I think
it's under 1%.
It got a little bit better. Hey, I'm just saying. Mathematically, if they're in it with 3 games to go, Aaron Rodgers said he was going to play.
And just remember, a lot of these teams all have to play each other. You know, Pittsburgh, all the divisional games, when you look at the NFC North with AFC North with Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati, they're all playing each other.
Yeah. But if they beat the Dolphins and Aaron Rodgers is feeling good, I would not be surprised.
Stop with that.
I'm not. Hey, he has to stop with that, not me. He's the one saying it.
He's so guarded right now. He's backing up and
Well, we'll see.
Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.